object to me. You're just a piece of me, and I am a butcher. I love you better, love you forever. You're just an object to me.
Good day, everyone. My name is not going to be put on here, but I am a person who is raising awareness to domestic violence. You can find my GoFundMe page listed in the information in the link for this video, and I am not currently asking for funding, but if you would like to, that is one way to contribute so that I can continue making videos that raise awareness to the ways domestic violence looks from the beginnings of a relationship until the exit, and also what it looks after the fact. Today I want to look at an example from the year 2018. For me, this is the year that I started refusing to participate in parties and things like this with my ex. I started throwing out alcohol in our house. I was called a prude for doing so, and I was told that I was boring. In fact, one of the last things that was said to me in 2020, after I had paid for this person who co-inhabited and co-owned the home that I am in right now, was this very statement about being a prude after I had paid for 2 weeks of that person living in an RV in the front of our yard due to the fact that COVID had just began. And it was a very scary time. In addition, it was a very scary time for me and our children. We were leaving an abusive situation. So 2018 is a moment where I want to really focus on what an abuser sounds like in the process of abuse, in the process of trying to make the abuse go away, with the kind of apologies that one would expect for the kind of behavior that transpires. But I think that you will be able to see some of the things from this in relation to some of the things that happened directly after, with some kind of clarity as we go forward. There is some discussion in here of me having an affair. This is not true. I recently actually found recordings wherein you can hear the person who is abusing me telling me that basically he doesn't want me hanging out with these people because he wants to be the one I want to disclose my issues to, and I want, he wants to be the one to heal the very things that he has broken in our relationship. And so that will come up at a point. Stay tuned. I'm not going to kind of get into that in this episode, but in another episode of Object podcast, we will talk about that particular tape and the recording and what happens within it. There should be like some note here that the indiscretion that is referenced was one I was accused of in front of an entire Little League full of parents right when our kids first started doing Little League. So they were 4 and 6 years old. One was in preschool, the other was in first grade. And the person who I was accused of having an affair with had come over to my home because my grandmother had just been diagnosed with metastatic cancer, and he was just being there as a friend. We were sitting in my backyard. And the person who you'll also hear on the tape saying how upset they are over the fact that I didn't call them instead, you can also hear had just showed up to my door a few weeks before that asking me for a divorce. So with all that said, I just kind of want to put that out there because this is going to raise some flags in terms of that. This is an exercise from Lundy Bancroft's guide for men who are serious about changing. Looney Bancroft is an expert in domestic violence and in men, especially male abusers especially, but in abuse in general. He has a website where you can go and find this guide to change. You can also see some of his publications. I am not an expert in domestic violence. I am an expert in women's studies, and so is the person I am writing about. So that brings into question some things here. And I am also not a therapist, nor do I give any kind of legal or expert advice in general. This is just a personal experience that I am putting out there as a means of bringing awareness to domestic violence and the intricacies and the reasons that women get stuck in a domestic violence situation. I am currently still stuck in a domestic violence situation. I am free. The person does not live in the house from me. However, I've been going through 3 years of litigation because when I said, when I was serious about leaving, not that I wasn't serious before, but when I refused to allow this kind of, response, apology, whatever you want to call it, accountability, when I refused to allow someone to be accountable and still live in the house with me, despite continuing to do these things, the tune changed. This is no longer present. I have been railroaded legally. I paid for a social investigation. The social investigator had all of this material. She also knew that I had been sober because of this situation and because of my abuser's problems, and that I had sought some care and counseling in that regard for my own reasons and for reasons that are directly related to this. But a lot of it was related to not engaging with this anymore and not becoming victim to this ever again. So with that said, and without further ado, this is a Looney Bancroft exercise. It's exercise 1-3, and the 3 questions that are posed in ABC. What is scary or upsetting about admitting that I have a problem that has to be overcome? B, reasons that Tori is right even if I'm not 100% in agreement with her all the time. And C, if I accept this as a problem and change my behavior, I would not, underline, be sacrificing anything, but would enjoy life much more. The example that is chosen in this piece, my behavior of looking at other women inappropriately. I will say that at this time, I was not sober at the time that this was written, and the kinds of domestic violence things that we're used to hearing about, whether it was me being picked up and thrown into a desk and then yelled at when I was on the floor, or my having my wrist sliced open by a sliding glass door because I was being screamed at and trying to get up and got pushed into it, and it was not safety glass. This is kind of before that time, so I kind of want to situate that. The social investigator then later claims that she can't tell the difference. She thinks that these might have been fights that were mutual that happened during, being intoxicated and drinking. By the way, the acts of domestic violence that she's speaking about happened during my sobriety, which started in January of 2019, January 2nd, in honor of one of my friend's birthdays. And in honor of the person who came over to my house for New Year's that year and said, Tori, you don't have to live in this environment anymore. You don't. It's okay to leave, even if there are reasons, even if a person had mental issues that might cause them to act this way, there's no reason for you to stay and try to take care of that while the other person doesn't. And so all these things, coupled with just the increased violence coming toward me and the fact that I almost lost my life a number of times, but most seriously in 2019. So this is right before that. And this is right before this person went to domestic violence batterers intervention class. It was right before a lot of different things. And we'll get into all of it today. So, for this episode, we're going to be reading through the response for exercise 1-3. And here it goes. I'll try to read it as best as I can. without too many inflections. I have long denied looking at other women inappropriately or downplayed what it might mean or how it affected Tori, because to admit that this is, I'm going to do this every time there's an underline and this every time there's a quote, that this is inappropriate would mean that I have been the kind of person who actually does this sort of thing, i.e. a sexist pig who objectifies women, or the kind of guy who feels entitled to look at women because it's harmless, or the kind of person who believes they can get away with such disgusting behavior so long as I'm not caught, without damaging my reputation as a good guy, as an enlightened man who represents and respects rather than demeans women, as a liberated man opposed to patriarchy and aligned with feminism. To admit that I do look is to admit that I have been a hypocrite. I am not such a good guy or even a good person, and I am certainly not enlightened or liberated. To admit I do the very thing I supposedly denounce would be to admit that I am no better than any of the other men in my family, including my father, and perhaps even worse, because I pretend to be someone that I am not. To admit to such behavior is to admit that my public self, who I claim to be and present to the world, is a lie. That I am full of shit, a fraud who is doing more harm than good. To admit who I really am to my loved ones is so very scary. I do not want my sisters to know that I do something like this, or any of my relatives, and I certainly don't want our children to know this about me. Nor have I really wanted to admit this to Tori for all the above reasons, which cumulatively and as a matter of principle would be reason enough for her to leave me. I mean, who does this sort of thing, then expects their partner to tolerate it or for the relationship to last? B. Tori has been right all along. I have been guilty of this kind of behavior throughout our entire relationship and have been long at war with her over it. For the longest time, I would simply deny doing this and instead would be willing to fight her, insisting I did no such thing, that she's seeing things, that she's too insecure, or that she's just plain wrong or even crazy. I have worked very hard not to fix this, but to refuse to admit that I do this by telling myself various fictions as a way of excusing such behaviors, which means we're about to get a list of the various fictions that are used to dismiss these behaviors. Number one, that it is really harmless, since I would never act on such indiscretions, that to look is simply that, looking, which ends right there. I know that I will never absorb such looking into my mind and memory, that I will never store such images as fantasy material, and that I definitely don't use such thoughts in our own sex life. I don't do any of this, so what's the harm? Except for that time that after having sex with me, he told me he was fantasizing about Lisa Parks, which was really disturbing. Really disturbing to use somebody else in that way to harm someone. I don't do any of this, so what's the harm? 2. Second, various fiction. I have also excused this behavior because I know how much I love Tori, because I am attracted to her, how much she turns me on, how much I find her beautiful and sexy and erotic, that I don't need anything else. I also know that I am definitely not dissatisfied with our sex life. It is the best sex I have ever had in my entire life. And that I am truly lucky that she is so passionate and affectionate and exciting to be with. What more would I ever want? She fulfills these needs many times over, and I know deep down that I am committed to us and absolutely not looking for anything or anyone else. This is the reason that I have needed years of EMDR therapy. I entered into this relationship writing about being treated this very way in this person's class. So it has taken me a very long time to heal, and I haven't even started really getting out there in terms of dating again. I've had a couple of dates because I never want to be treated this way again in my entire life. And as a victim of abuse, it's kind of hard to know. This is 2018. This is after 16 years of being with someone, and it is troubling to not know what someone feels and the reason behind the way they're treating you, that it is based on this kind of thing. Nonetheless, sometimes we find that out. People are human, and people make mistakes, and people hurt people, and hurt people, but there's still no reason that I ever should have had to go through this, nor that my kids should have ever seen anything like this, nor any reason that anyone who has suffered so much abuse should ever have to go through 3 years of litigation in order to get divorced and simply have their home and move on with their life. I'm seriously wanting to move away at this point because I cannot get away from someone treating me this way. And so long as I am stuck in the situation with someone treating me this way, I will continue to suffer this kind of harm. So this is also part of the reason that I am raising awareness. Because when you get into this position, you have to raise awareness because you gotta save yourself from any further harm. I'm sorry, a teacher, very emphatic. All right. Third, fiction. I have excused this behavior at other times, especially when caught, by rationalizing it. Underline. At least in my own mind, as a way of getting even. That, okay, maybe it isn't entirely harmless, but at least I never went through with an act of infidelity, unlike her, who cheated on me, if not actually committing adultery, but by having an emotional affair with someone who is helping me try to leave an abusive situation. He didn't say that. An emotional affair with someone else, which was very worse than anything I have ever done. Looking is not cheating. I have told myself she can complain all she wants, but until she admits what she has done, then none of this will be resolved. So basically, I have to admit that I have done something so that the other person will stop hurting me after 16 years of hurting me. So now you know what I heard for the next however many years after I moved back in 2015, 2016, because of mold the first time in my house that I moved out in and not having the means to continue with a deposit for a new place. Finally, this being the last such fiction, I have excused such behavior by taking comfort in knowing how often she has been wrong in accusing me of looking, when she can insist all she wants. But there have been numerous times, especially since the Jenna incident, which was where he spent 5 minutes staring down his nephew's girlfriend's and his nephew's daughter's mother's shirt right in front of me and her kid and his kid and his nephew and his family. Since the Jenna incident, which he says Brenda, very strange, I don't understand that, that I really have been honest with myself and truly believe that I was not looking at what T claimed, e.g. Joy Division concert, where I went and stood right in front of the stage so that I can get away from what's going on, Parquet Courts, where I left, you could have stayed, or the J Apple Orchard, I didn't even want to be there with you, or Disney didn't want to be there with you, to name incidents I recall rather vividly. Vividly for someone who doesn't remember things vividly. C, acceptance. If I really did own up to this behavior and accept that this is the kind of person who does this, if I really did own up to my behavior, this is number 3, I could begin by changing not just my behavior, but my core being of who I really am and who I want to be. If I accept the fact that I have been this kind of person, but am unwilling to work hard to change who I am, but am willing to work hard to change who I am, then I can begin to finally bring together the inner and outer selves to match up who I am with who I've claimed to be, with who I've become. Someone who practices what he preaches, who lives up to his ideals, who really does take concrete steps toward making this a better world. If I change who I have been to genuinely become a good guy and good person, I can finally live with myself and not live a fraudulent life. Moreover, I can be the kind of friend, brother, and father I should be, I need to be, so as to fulfill the promise of being authentic and at peace with myself. To fulfill the promise that change, no matter how difficult or seemingly impossible, is possible. To fulfill the promise that I made to my children to embody the values we subscribe to and believe in, to be kind, considerate, compassionate, loving. And finally, if I accept that I really have a problem, but have the power to change, I would enjoy life so much more because I will no longer be harming my relationship and hurting T in this way. It has been totally unacceptable to do what I have been doing, knowing full well how it destroys the trust between us, knowing full well that it contributes to the breaking of us apart, knowing full well that it is nothing less than emotionally abusive behavior, abusive to her sense of safety and security in our relationship, abusive to her sense of feeling that she is enough for me, that she is adequate, that she can truly be herself without fear of me straying or secretly wanting something else or secretly wishing she would do more to hold my attention. That's telling. Life would be so much better without the fear of having to wonder what a partner might be really thinking or feeling or fantasizing about. Life would be so much better if she did not have to worry about who I really am, what I really want, what is really going through my mind during our most intimate moments together. Not Lisa Parks. Which is no disregard to Lisa Parks. I'm sure I've talked to her a couple of times. A very lovely person. I don't really know her that well. The only thing I know is this. Life would be so much better if she not only believed me, but believed in me. Life would be so much better if she believed me when I told her she is all I want, and that I am more than satisfied, and that I would never stray or even think about leaving her. Life would be so much better if she not only believed me, but believed in me, so much so that she no longer feared that I even want to look around, that she could finally relax and be at ease with me in public, or not have to worry about what I am doing when I am not with her. Life would be so much more enjoyable without all these fears and anxieties, preventing us from becoming even more uninhibited and free with each other to reach the level of intimacy. Now, I know where this is going. That could be possible, but has been blocked because of my actions and behavior. Life could be so much better knowing that T feels safe with me, that she can count on me to be there, that she can trust me with her feelings. Life would be so much better when we can trust one another completely, allowing us to open up and stay connected, even through the inevitable bumps and problems and conflict that come with a lifelong commitment. Life would be so much better to our marriage built on trust, mutual respect, devotion, mutual support, faith, and being able to rely on each other. Life would be so much better when we forged between a steady unshakable foundation between equals, between partners. Life would be so much better in a relationship between us as individuals and between us as a couple. Life would be so much better when one can be who we really are, can be true to ourselves and true to each other, can bring the best of ourselves to our children and family, to the world. Life would be so much better living a life that has meaning because we love each other so much that we make life worth living. Again, I am not a professional. I am not here to incite hate. I am here to educate and only educate you in terms of what I have learned from my studies of women in these situations and in society, and in relation to what I have written in front of me as to what I've been through. So, thanks for listening. Like and subscribe. Till next time.